This is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, CRG. Let's go. What are you saying for tonight?
You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the
Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now,
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do. And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
They're back. They're back, baby.
We're going back to back. I don't know what everybody's talking about last post. We're going back to back. We never stop. We never stop believing, guys. We never stop believing, right?
Oh, man. Who could have saw this one coming? The Celtics having a bounce back win.
Blowout?
Terrible loss. I didn't see it coming.
I wonder what's going to happen next.
Is there a trend going on? But what's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Rob Hayte, and join with me are my three amazing co-hosts. You guys know them. Nick Franco, Justin Lowe, and Seamus Zarlingo. Guys, we have you covered for yet another Celtics win, guys. 122-100 was your final score from the TD Garden tonight, guys. The Celtics, like we said, they bounced back. They've been doing it all year. We know this is the Celtics that we know, we love, and that this team is capable of playing this type of basketball, guys. We kind of prefaced that on last post-game show, as we kind of knew what to expect tonight. And fair warning, yes, it was a good win, but the vibes might not be as high as you might think on this post-game show. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about, stuff to dive into, guys. Before we do that, you know the drill here. Our initial thoughts, reactions, takeaways on, this win, because it was a good win.
Well, 14-1 after a loss on this season. 14-1. That's amazing. The Celtics have only lost back-to-back games only once this entire 2024-25 year. And with all of the griping we've done here lately on postgame, it really feels like, maybe, just maybe, this team, even with a 33-15 record, they're still in a great position in order to pick themselves up off the floor, go on a run, and really achieve what we expect them to do this season. And really, I'm tired of sitting here and saying that this could be the potential building block. But every time a win like this happens, we have to say it, because this is the potential of the Boston Celtics. It is a 22-point win against the Chicago Bulls at home. And yes, we don't trust this team to come out against the Pelicans in New Orleans. I'm not going to say which day that is, because I have no idea which day. I almost said
Friday.
Sunday. No idea what day it is. We don't know what day it is on here. But regardless, the Celtics, we want to see them go on a run. And every time they do this, every single time, we want this to be the first building block. And no, it's not a stepping stone, folks. That word is banned here. It's called building blocks around here. We want it to be the first building block. But the Celtics team, it's just, I don't know what to say at this point. We're 14-1 after a loss. So this team just straight up doesn't lose back-to-back games, which there's something to be said about that potentially come playoff time, is the team just doesn't lose consistently. However, it just seems to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as of late. And if we can just string together a few wins, three, how about three? Let's start with three. The next two games, let's start with three. See where we can go from there. Maybe this team can get back on track. Now, tonight's game was, again, we've seen it against the Magic. We've seen it against the Warriors. We saw it again tonight against the Chicago Bulls. This was a game in which the Celtics can play blow out their opponent, and really start to go on a run. Now, when is that run going to happen? We have no idea. We still might be in the definition of insanity right now, which is going back and forth, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result and seeing the same result. But at some point in time, if this team is really serious about going back to back, they're going to have to start a run. And maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of the run. But ultimately, I got to see more. I really have to see more. We have to see this every single night. The points off of turnovers were phenomenal tonight. That second quarter for the Celtics, 41 points in the second quarter. That really blew the game wide open. A little cold streak to end the first quarter. They started the game hot. It was almost like every other game we've seen this season where they start the game hot. The second portion of the first quarter, Celtics kind of came back down to earth. But then the second quarter, the game was blown open. The Celtics in transition were running, and that's what we want to see is them get easy points in transition, specifically off their defense. As of late, the Celtics defense has been terrible. Tonight, it was a lot better, and not only was it a lot better, but the Celtics, it really affected their offense as well in terms of them creating points off of that defense. And again, this is a performance. These are the type of performances that we look at this team and go, why can't you do this every single night? And if you do, you're the favorite. You're still the favorite. We're still number one in the odds markets to go back to back unbelievably at this point in time. Yet that's where the Celtics still stand at the end of January. And again, I'll bring up in 21-22, the Celtics, they were still scuffling at the end of January. And then they went on their run. So there's still plenty of time in order for the Celtics to turn it around. And maybe, just maybe, we have to say it every single time, this could be the first building block in place to go and do that. But we simply have to see more because this team has just done way too much in order to put mistrust into us at this point in time. Tonight, great game, but we've got to see 3 straight games of this. Please, 3, not 2, 3.
Yeah, I think with this Celtics team, and man, 48 hours ago, we were sitting here and we were talking about this team, win, loss. And we're still like that. We're still on that pattern. This was a really good win for the Boston Celtics, but so wasn't the Orlando Magic game, followed by a loss. So wasn't the Golden State Warriors game, followed by a followed by a Clippers win. But then you get destroyed by the Los Angeles Lakers, pretty much defeating the whole purpose of gutting that Clippers game out. Then you dominate the Mavericks, come home, get harassed in the fourth quarter by the Houston Rockets, and then, continuing that blowout win and then loss, blowout win and then loss tonight here with the blowout win. Listen, the last couple games at least, and you guys know me, I'm big on the whole effort energy thing. I felt it lacking when this whole dry spell started for the Celtics, as inconsistency started. But these past 2 games, despite being 1-1 in these last 2 games, the effort and energy have certainly been there. And especially tonight, Celtics came out hot. Celtics came out firing, mainly Kristaps Porzingis, lights out all night long. And, Rob, you said this during the Rockets game, post-game show, we had a few good individual performances, but at the same time, we haven't really seen this Celtics team really connect as one. We haven't seen a 34-point, 28-point, 22-point, 18-point game consistently out of this team. Tonight, that's what we saw. 34 for Kristaps, 28 for Jaylen Brown, 22, I believe, for Derek White, and then 16 or 18, correct me if I'm wrong, for Jason Tatum tonight. So definitely a lot of factors going into tonight. A lot of really good games for the 4 players tonight on the Celtics team. Saw some great bench performances as well. We saw Peyton Pritchard facilitating tonight, which is something that he has not done such a great job of as of late. But again, all of this 48 hours from now goes down the drain if Boston goes into New Orleans and loses, and then we're just on the same repetitive track. So the Celtics have a really good shot now. I understand that the Pelicans are starting to get hot a little bit now that they're getting some guys back into their rotation, but this is a team that, yes, the Celtics did beat, and we'll get more into the matchup later on in the postgame show. This is a game where the Celtics did beat the Pelicans by 1 point, but in my mind, kind of feels more like a loss because the Celtics played horrendously in that game, and they were a missed layup away from losing that game. So really good win here tonight for the Boston Celtics, but that's been the trend. A really good win followed by a really bad loss.
Yeah, the Bulls started off the game with a pretty weird lineup tonight with 4 point guards. And so I thought the Celtics were going to take more of an advantage of that throughout the game. And they did a great job having active hands on defense. It's something that Kristaps Porzingis was actually quoted on during pregame is they will turn it on when they need to. It's something that when is the right time? Like I feel like that is something that really needs to happen soon after heading into next week, which you have a pretty challenging schedule. 76ers, if they are healthy, will put up a challenge, and then
boy, that is a tough week.
Yeah. And you'll really get into some heavier matchups. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers coming up, but tonight you saw two other players on the lineup really step up. Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis continuing to have that hot hand from deep. He was almost automatic. It's almost like watching him shoot. I feel like he's more comfortable shooting a 30-foot three-pointer than a free throw just because of how tall he is. And it seems so effortless when he has that open space, which he was able to create due to the mismatches. And when the Celtics had that small hiccup during the first quarter, which was very minimal, they switched over, called the audible, and started driving to the rim, which is something we've been calling for all season long. Did I just got? I don't know. But yep. Yeah, that's something we've been calling on the Celtics to do all season is be able to figure out when the shot's not falling and adjust and be able to attack the rim. I think we're going to be I'm hoping this carries over. That's the main thing that matters. This is something we've been quoted on multiple times. We're just finding different words to explain it from now on, just so we don't sound like we're repeating ourselves.
Right.
But yeah, good one.
Yeah, I mean, like, great. You beat Chicago at home by 22. Awesome. Right? Like awesome. I'm sorry, but that's how I see this game. You know, you like this is nothing to celebrate. You beat a team you should have beaten. You know, control it within control. Like that's not where the bar is with this team, right? We're not going down that far, and I hope the players aren't either, which I don't think they are. But like, awesome, you got the win, but you know, like, duh, you're playing the 20 and now 28 Chicago Bulls at home, where you should be nearly perfect with only losing 6 games all last year at home, playoffs and regular season included, and now you've dropped the ball continuously at home. So I thought we looked good. I thought Porzingis is finally starting to look, you know, fresh in the Kristaps we knew last year entering the playoffs. I think that is a positive sign to take out of this. I thought the ball was flying around the perimeter. I thought they did a great job at passing. 32 assists tonight. Yes, to 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. That's Celtics basketball. I mean, I believe they're 14-0 when they have over 30 assists in the regular season with this core. I mean, excuse me. They're nearly unbeatable when they're doing that. When they're moving this basketball around, and they did that tonight. So again, it was a great win, but let's not fool ourselves, right? This is the Celtics after a loss at home playing a shitty basketball team. Sorry. That's what it is. And I think that's what we have to view it as. And Seamus, I completely agree with you, right? You know, they looked great tonight. Could this be a building block, not a stepping stone, a building block, right? Yes. However, you know, I'm going to do you one better, and I'm going to say I need to see this out of the Celtics for a month. Now, I do want to say something, right? I want to see this tight level of play out of the Celtics it doesn't mean they win every game, right? But they're playing at a high level for a month stretch of time. And, you know, I want to talk about that 14-1 out of back-to-backs, because I do think that tells us Celtics fans something. I think the difference, and I've mentioned this here over some time of the season, the 2022-23 Celtics versus this year's Celtics and the trends we might be seeing between those two. A trend we saw a lot in that 22-23 season was losing streaks, 3, 4 games. If there is something, right, and a lot of the national media is pointing to this and the reason to not worry about this Celtics team, they still are bouncing back, right? So even when you do get them once, they are going to get you the next game. And when you talk about a 7-game series and you talk about a playoff series, it is really difficult to beat a team that can bounce back the next game. I will say this about this Celtics team, guys, and I'm interested if you guys agree or not. That their ability to bounce back this year still gives me a lot of hope with this team in the playoffs. It still tells me that, okay, they are playing bored right now. They are struggling right now. But maybe, just maybe, if you take a step back and you look at what they're doing and what the circumstances are, they're going to be just fine.
I would tend to agree with that. That 14-1 record is really nothing to spit at. It's nothing to joke about because the Celtics, after a loss, it seems like after every loss, I talked about last post game, the point of motivation on the Celtics team. Where is it exactly coming from? Because ultimately, this past year, the Celtics, they won a championship. There's multiple gold medalists on the roster. They achieved one of the best NBA records in history last season. We got an echo going on the stream here right now, by the way, somewhere in here. We got a total echo going on. But ultimately, within the motivation, the Celtics, they're also paid. I didn't mention that in the last post game, but that is one of the most important points. Every single starter is paid. And even some of the guys off the bench, they own salaries that, yeah, they want to get paid further on in time, but those years are not exactly due until later on down the road in which they have to play better seasons from now. So the Celtics' point of motivation, it's usually this season, well, where's the 1 point we've seen? It's coming off of a loss. They're 14-1 off of a loss. And the one time the Celtics didn't win off of a loss was that Christmas game against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Celtics lost to the Magic down in Orlando and then came back and lost at home to the Philadelphia 76ers. That is the only time all season that the Celtics lost back-to-back games. And that does bring a lot of optimism around Celtics Nation and fan base and analysts everywhere that the Celtics, when playoff time comes due, when the games become the importance behind the games becomes heightened, they are going to have that motivation. They're going to be able to respond to either their losses, but even more so their wins. And right now, the most concerning part of the team is not only their motivation, but the fact they just cannot string it together for multiple games. But even amidst not being able to string it together for multiple games, they are still putting it together every single time after a loss and finding that motivation to come out and really play the way that we know how they can play. Because that Orlando game, that Golden State game, this game tonight against the Chicago Bulls, these are almost flawless games for the Boston Celtics. And they really, if we see the talent on this team, we see the ability, and it really comes out within the execution, comes out within the effort. And even some of the little, the overtime / down the stretch games that the Celtics are fumbling, if you just execute down the stretch, those can be wins too. And if they win against the Hawks, they win against the Rockets, it's a much different conversation right now, because then we're really only looking at, oh, the Lakers game was terrible, but hey, at least we pulled out the Clippers game. Oh, we pulled out the Hawks game and the Rockets game in close, tough situations. That's not what happened, unfortunately. And really looking at the Celtics team in close situations the last 2 weeks, really, they're 2-2 essentially. They're 2-2. They have the Clippers game that they eventually pulled out. They have the Pelicans game, which we'll see ourselves play against the Pelicans again coming up. And then the other two games, you have the Hawks game and the Rockets game. So you're essentially 2-2 in those close games. And then every other game is either a really, really great win, or you have that terrible loss against the Los Angeles Lakers. So even amidst the stretch, there's still a lot of positive to find within the Celtics team, and still a lot of data to suggest when the time comes around, the Celtics are still going to be the toughest team to beat in the entire league 4 out of 7 times in a playoff series, because if you can't beat them back-to-back games, which we're seeing right now, teams just simply cannot beat the Celtics back-to-back games no matter what. When that time comes around in the playoffs, if the Celtics can't lose back-to-back games and they can really respond from both a loss or a win,
better hope
teams
we
are going to
win
be playing
game
from
one.
behind a lot. They're going to be playing
Better
from
hope we win
behind. And ultimately, there's still a ton of time. We still talk about this. It just feels like it's an insane run right now in terms of us talking about the team, because we just came in here, like you said, 48 hours ago, and we're coming off of a terrible loss against the Houston Rockets. And now we see a 22-point win against the Bulls, in which we should have seen. And it's just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it is just highly annoying at this point, because we know against the Pelicans, we don't know what we're going to get. We know we don't know. That's what we know. And essentially, going forward, we got to see the streaks come out of this team. And no, there haven't been any losing streaks, but we got to see more of the winning streaks, because in the playoffs, we can't go back and forth. If we lose game 1, we're going to lose in game 7 if we do that in the NBA playoffs. Now, you like the record 14-1, of course, for the Boston Celtics, but ultimately we need to see those streaks come about before the end of the season to really gain full confidence in the Celtics. But regardless, there is a lot of data to suggest that this team can still go back to back. And Rob, you even mentioned the last post game how the 2000 and 2001 Lakers, that is the team everybody pays attention to. Everyone goes, oh, look at how dominant they were in the playoffs. But the reality is they had a better regular season the season beforehand, and that could still be this Boston Celtics club later on in time, but we still have to see the building blocks be put into place before that all comes to fruition, because right now we can't come on the post game against the New Orleans Pelicans when that game comes about, and we cannot be talking about a loss. If we are, we're going to go insane. We're going to go insane. Last post game against the Rockets was a borderline insane post game, and tonight they really touch us again with that, in terms of, oh, yep, we're coming out here and blowing out the Chicago Bulls. But ultimately, this is what we need to see more of. And every time it happens, we say the same thing. Is this the start of the streak that we need to see? And ultimately, it could be. But we got to see more in order to gain that confidence. But regardless, the confidence, there's still a lot around Celtics Nation that they're still a good enough team to go back to back. It's just, where's the motivation coming from, and when is it going to come about?
What I will say about this team, and yes, if there's anybody to harp on, it's probably me in terms of, big example, that Milwaukee game lost a lot of value when we dogged it the next night and lost to the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I will say, when the Celtics have been able to bounce back these past 2 weeks, it's been in a major, major way. It is a big punch, a 27-point Orlando win, a 40-point Golden State win, a 22-point win tonight against Chicago, and I believe it was a 15-point win against the Dallas Mavericks in the finals rematch last Saturday. So the Celtics have been able to respond very, very, very well. No problem. But the problem is they haven't been using that as a building block. They haven't been building off that. And that really throws this off. And that's why every other night, us four are sitting here talking about, well, let's try not to sound like a broken record here. Well, it's pretty hard to not sound like a broken record when the Celtics are blowing out every other team and then getting waxed the very next game. So I really do like what I saw tonight from the Celtics. They really came out with energy. It stuck throughout the game, and I'm sure we're about to get to the lead tracker, and the lead grew tonight, which is something that you like to see. It didn't really falter. Boston, once they kind of get out to their lead in that second quarter, they used that 41-point second quarter to really as leverage and really put this game away.
They did. And before I hop into the lead tracker, I do just want to say something. I don't think this gets better anytime soon. And when I say anytime soon, I mean within the next 2 weeks. I think you are still going to see this trend go on a little bit longer with the Celtics, because I believe they're going
the win-loss trend.
Yes, or maybe you might see a win. I mean, not going to guarantee anything because that was a pretty poor guarantee following the Lakers performance. So I'm going to spare us there. But like, you should go in against, New Orleans and beat that team, especially after how you played against them at home. So you figure, okay, you beat the 8-win, 9-win or Pelicans. But I think right now where this team is at is just kind of get us to the All-Star break. Get us to the All-Star break, because I think that's when they're going to, get some time to rest, get some time to get their legs right. Drew Holiday said it. He was interviewed by NBC Sports Boston about his minutes and his playing time. And he's like, listen, I'm old, man. We're seeing Al Horford now.
Kept it real.
Right. Al Horford's taken as much time off as he possibly can. And even when he does play, he's not playing much. This team's tired. This team is kind of saving it almost. And I think what we're going to see with this team is a little bit more of this. I do think you're going to get till about February, I believe 9th is our last game before the All-Star break. Someone can fact check me there.
It is the 12th against San Antonio.
So I think you're going to see this for about almost 2 more weeks. And then I think this team's going to come out ready for the playoffs. And I think that's when you're going to see them really clicking again. So yes, again, good win, potential building block. However, I am going to, from my point of view, I'm going to shut down that narrative in my own mind, because I do think, I could be wrong, but I do think that this team is waiting to get to the All-Star break before you really start to see them string together some wins. Yeah, hopefully I'm wrong, but that's my prediction. But let's hop into the lead tracker here tonight, guys. Again, complete domination. I mean, it was a split seconds away from being a wire-to-wire win. Celtics obviously leading by as much as 24 points tonight, guys. Chicago on the other end, they only got out to a 1-point lead there halfway through that second quarter. Boston took the lead, and they never turned back, guys. Longest run from the C's. Yep, well, you guessed it, 13. Guys, again, we've seen this team do things like this. We've seen them. This isn't new to us, right? But tonight against Chicago, what stood out to you in terms of, okay, Boston needs to do more of this if they want to continue to build?
They answered. When the Chicago Bulls made a push, they were able to answer. That's something that we've seen the Celtics usually throw their arms up and be able to let that turn into a challenge. And they didn't really play into the Chicago Bulls game. They evaluated what was going on the court. They started to attack the rim throughout the game and found some great success doing that. And then I think they're doing they did a great job of really getting the offense going through transition offense, and that is just an example of effort for this team, and that's a type of effort that this team really needs to build a habit of, and to counteract. I think that this is the best time for the Celtics to really get things going and have some confidence heading into the All-Star weekend. I think they want to finish this off on a high note and really have that confidence going forward into the per se second half of the season, ready to finish off strong and compete for a number 1 seed, because I was standard things, and I think that they're pretty solid for what is going to be there, especially in the play-in round. It's a much more challenging year this year, so they're going to be in a lot of fights, and we're not going to be seeing the gentleman sweeps or even the sweeps in general really during playoffs unless they can turn the corner and build this consistency now. You're going to be seeing a lot of 6-7 game series, and they're going to be challenging for this team. And we talk about them being fatigued halfway through the season. Imagine how fatigued they would be going into May and June. I think being able to just find some type of fluidity going forward, and especially into All-Star weekend, will set this team apart and really get them on the proper focus.
All right.
When you
round table, let's go.
When you look at this team, I don't think whatsoever, and I know, Rob, you're not saying it more like they're choosing to suck until the All-Star break, but I don't think this team, I wouldn't like them to go in to a week plus break continuing this whatsoever. I'd really like to see the Celtics string together some really solid performances in a row ASAP. I would not like to see them go into the break on like this win-loss thing. And I understand that might be the reality of it. That just might be where this team is heading. But I'd also, and Franco pointed out the schedule, I didn't realize our strength of schedule next week is that significant. That will tell you, that little stretch right there will tell you a lot about this Celtics team. I really do believe that. And I get it. Oh, we'll only be in the second week of February, or the first week of February. But the Knicks, the Sixers, who have been playing better. And then you obviously have Dallas in there, and I believe Cleveland is in that stretch as well. That's going to tell you a lot about this team, despite struggling this past month and a half. So I'd really like to see the Celtics. And as far as preserving energy, I don't know. I'm not buying this. Al Horford has a toe injury these past couple games. And,
let me just say this, because I don't disagree
I'm okay
with
it.
But I don't disagree with you, right? I'm not sitting here saying that I think this is good for the Celtics or they should take this time to, just get into the All-Star. I 100% agree that this team needs to string together some wins to get the vibe back, right? Because again, we talked about this, God, how many times now over the past month and a half, 2 months,
We've had no choice.
What's more important, health or playing well going into the playoffs, right? I think this team needs to string together some wins. I think, they need to get their flow back. They need to get their swagger back 100%, right? They need that. However, I can't sit here after what they've shown me and give them the benefit of the doubt now that they're just going to randomly do it because they beat the Bulls at home on a Wednesday night. Like this game won't do it for me, right? Like this won't be the game that I'm going to say is the building block game. Now we come out and we're on a 3-game win streak and we beat Cleveland. Okay, now we're talking, right? Now we're in business for a building block game. But I'm sorry, a Wednesday night win at home after a loss against the Chicago Bulls, the 10th seeded struggling Chicago Bulls, it doesn't move the needle.
Well, I'm not saying this game moves the needle whatsoever. I definitely think it's more a step in the right direction compared to if the Celtics go in and lose this game without Zach LaVine and already a significant team that you should beat. I'm not saying that this moves the table at all because, as I've mentioned this entire show, we've seen dominant wins out of the Celtics this month. But that's why I mentioned the schedule next week. Next week will give you a real kind of.
I agree.
Next week is the week that's going to, when you play the Knicks and the Cavs, 2 teams that are in the standings right with you. Then you play the Mavericks in a finals rematch, and you throw in the beginning of the week. I forget
New York.
But I don't even think this win is a step in the right direction.
No, but I would say it is compared to if you had lost this game.
Right.
If you would.
But
go back. I'm not saying this moves the needle. I'm not saying this moves the needle. And again, I'll still say this. This game and the way we played tonight is huge. The Celtics, how they won is huge. Not because they won. How they won is huge. It is, Rob. When you've been playing really bad basketball, Rob. When you've been playing really bad
basketball on the second night following a win. You have been playing really bad basketball following a loss. Like this isn't new. They've been doing this. This is the same thing.
I'm not saying it's new whatsoever. I'm saying it's good that you came out for 48 minutes and you put together a 48-minute ball game against a team that's good.
Huh? I'm just not there with this game then, because again, this isn't anything. Like I'm not saying it's bad.
So you think tonight was a bad game? That's what
I don't think it was a bad.
No, it was a bad game. I think it was an expectation.
I look at this game, and this isn't moving in the right direction. This is good. We know this. You're 14-1 after losses. Like good, like awesome, right? You won the game, but it's Chicago. There is that where the bar's at now? Oh yeah, beat Chicago.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that this is a very solid win. But again, if you go in 8 p.m. at the Smoothie King Arena on Friday night, Seamus, and you lose that game, then absolutely all is lost, and we're on the same record, spinning. spinning, and it's the
Right.
same vinyl. We haven't even flipped sides. It's the same
Right.
damn vinyl with the same songs. So,
Right.
yes, a good win tonight, but also you need to go in Friday and you need to build off the wins. We haven't been able to build off the wins. We know what we can do off of a loss. We have very evident one of the best teams coming off a loss. I think the record's 14-1, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show. Also, this month specifically, I think I just made a post about this. Celtics are 0-5 following a win this month. 0-5 following a win. So, I mean, what does that tell you? What does that tell you about Friday night's game? I mean, yes, we're tied for the second best road record, but I agree with you, Rob. I am standing by. This is a very solid win for the Celtics. As Franco said, it did meet the expectations. You're supposed to come in and beat this team. You're supposed to come in and beat them up, even though we were short some guys too. This is the expectation. Celtics are better than the Chicago Bulls. Celtics need to come out and dominate on their home court. They did what they were supposed to do. That is good. But we need to see this more often, and that's not what we're seeing off of wins.
And the only reason I say this is because right now I'm just looking for new trends. Right now, that because again, it was a good win. I'm not saying anything that like the Celtics came in and they played bad, and I'm mad about nothing like that. But right now, I think what we need to look into is new trends for the Celtics. Unfortunately, while yes, this is a good win, it's not a new trend.
Well, let's bring out the phrase that always starts the post game now. This was a nothing game. Yeah. This was a nothing game in terms of long-term longevity for the Boston Celtics because, Rob, you're completely right. We have been seeing this, which to me, it's like that regardless, we need to see this anyway. We need to see this type of win out of the Boston Celtics, but we need to see it.
Yes, no doubt. Justin is right on the money on that.
But we need to see it time and time again. And ultimately, that's not what we've seen yet. And that's why it's just such a tough conversation coming into all of these wins, whether it's against the Mavericks, whether it's against the Warriors, whether it's against the Magic, because ultimately, and even tonight against the Chicago Bulls, ultimately, we came into every single one of these games, the last 4 dominant wins, and we've said, oh, all right, here.
Justin knew. Justin heard that noise and he looked right up.
So can we get a sponsorship for duct tape? Are we doing that too?
No, we need
Ocean
people
spray,
to use their
duct
codes
tape.
for our other
Yeah,
sponsorships.
all of our other
tape.
we need our sponsors.
Get those cardboard boxes. Cardboard boxes work well. You just gotta slip them apart. But in regards to the Celtics and their record right now, and really, I'm not even talking about their season record. I'm really talking about the record as of late in terms of their reputation. Really, their reputation is really the trend goes right now. We expect a loss to the New Orleans Pelicans coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Every time I see that tilt down on my camera, it's just PTSD. It's like, uh-oh.
You're telling me.
But with the Celtics, you need to put this stretch in front of you that suggests that this last month was nothing. And ultimately, there were games in there that you lost because you fumbled the details. There were some clunkers in there, but ultimately, every single time the Celtics responded after a win. And if they go on a streak now, whether it's before All-Star break or after All-Star break, there's still, 8 games or so until All-Star break. So there's still some time to put up some, if you go 5-3 in those 8 games, I don't know if there's actually 8 games or not, so I'm hypothetical record here. But if you go 5-3, or you go even better if you go +1, 6-2. I don't know why I couldn't figure out that math right away. 6-2. If you go on that type of streak, that's a good streak if you're the Boston Celtics, and that's what we're more looking forward to. Because what's so frustrating right now about the team is they are a pure 500 team, and this is what 500 teams do. They really dupe you in and out. And this is what happened the entirety of the 2021 season, because that team was 36-36 at the end of the year in a 72-game season, a shortened season due to COVID. And it was every other game. It was, great win, and followed by a tremendously bad loss. Well, that's what we're going through right now. And this is the part of the pattern where we come in here and go, great win. This is what we just need to see more of this. And then it's followed up by more confusing, confuddling performances. So tonight's game, it is becoming the Celtics, the reputation. We're at a point where this is almost a nothing game. It's a game you have to win, and we're gonna say, yeah, it was a great win. But until we give this team real praise, it's going to have to transpire time and time again moving forward. And I do agree. It's going to have to transpire more than I said 3 games. That's really just the first. Like, hey, can we just pass this right now?
That's the first block. Games?
We got about right. That's the first block. We'll say the first block is done once we do 3 games. But after that, we got to see. Oh, if you lose after 3 games, you come back with another 3 games. Then all of a sudden, you're 6-1 in the last 7. We want to see those type of streaks. We don't want to see the going back and forth. Because what's frustrating about that is right now the Cleveland Cavaliers are back and forth. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games, and the Celtics. It looked like for a minute there. The Celtics, hey, we could be 4.5 back of the Cleveland Cavaliers, but then, no, we haven't gained any ground whatsoever because the Celtics themselves are 5-5 in their last.
6-4 now.
6-4. Okay, well they're 5-5 coming into today, but hey, milestone. We're above 500 in our last 10. But what's even more important too is you think the Celtics, the number 1 seed, we've been really counting it out for a month. Technically, it's not out of the realm of possibilities Celtics can go on a run and get that number 1 seed. They could have just done it the last month if they really got their heads out of their asses and won some of these close games, especially down the stretch. You might only be 2.5 back of the 1 seed if you won some of these close games against the Rockets, against the Hawks, against any other team that the Celtics just against the Raptors. I mean, come on. The Celtics were in that game in the 4th quarter and then and we're just allowing Toronto to go on a run. Same thing with the Kings, tied going into the 4th quarter, and you let a 38-point quarter slip out from under you. And there are good stretches of this Boston Celtics team where you look at it's really marginal. It's marginal between them becoming a really great team that we saw last season and being the really not so great team we've seen this season. But let's even throw this out: the New York Knicks, the Denver Nuggets tonight, unfortunately, could not beat the New York Knicks in New York, despite having a lead for most of the game. And if the Knicks would have won tonight and the Celtics lose this game, we would have been tied for the number 3 seed. The Knicks really would have been tied for the number 2 seed. We would have held the tiebreaker over the Knicks because of that head-to-head win earlier this season, of course. But right now, in terms of the standings, it's getting pretty close there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. It's getting pretty close there
right now.
It's getting pretty close. And the Celtics, I don't want to see the Celtics fall down to number 3. I don't think anybody else wants to see the Celtics fall down to number 3. And that's why I think the Celtics, regardless of whether or not they're trying to get themselves to All-Star break, they have to be playing this way and building good habits because ultimately there are only going to be so many months in front of them. And after All-Star break, there's only about 25 to 30 games left in the season. And the Celtics don't want to leave it up to chance that, 25, 30 games left. Because ultimately, the last 25, 30 games of the Celtics haven't been good. They really have not been good. And they've been going back and forth. And you see the good stretches, but you see the terrible stretches. And we still, up to this point in time, even after a great win, we don't know if we're out of this yet. We don't know. And this is just so frustrating. Because even that Clippers win, we won, but no, the inconsistency was still going on, and it showed the next night against the Los Angeles Lakers when they blew the Celtics out of the water in a rivalry game. And then the Celtics came back and whooped the Dallas Mavericks. And then they lose to the Houston Rockets. And now they whoop the Bulls. So the Celtics, they're not out of this stretch by any means whatsoever. But you have to start putting up these games in order to rebuild that confidence. And it has to happen at some point in time. And that is what right now is just the question is, when is it going to start to happen? When? Because it could have happened a month ago. It really could have. It could have happened right after Christmas. It could have happened mid-January. It can happen this week. It can be right now for the Boston Celtics. It's just the question still remains, when? It's been a month and a half, and we're still seeing the same trends within the team. And 4 dominant wins really in the last, 8 games? And any of those could have been the turning point. Tonight, I'm not saying there's oh, wait, I said turning point. I'm banned from the show. Sorry, you guys got to walk out.
You didn't say stepping stone, right?
So I didn't say stepping stone. I just said turning point. But in terms of turning the corner, it could be after All-Star break. But I still want to see the Celtics. Let's build those good habits before All-Star break because I don't want them leave. I don't want anything left up to chance after that break for the Celtics because we've just seen if they go into All-Star break like this. I don't know where the confidence is. I don't know where the motivation is for them to actually go in after All-Star break and just start ripping off wins. That's my problem with that.
I think the motivation is All-Star break, right? I think that is when you come out of All-Star break is when you batten down the hatches and you get ready for the playoffs. I think that's the motive. I don't think this team is thinking to themselves, we have no interest in going back to back, right? I don't think that's what it is, right? I think right now what you're seeing is this team is thinking to themselves, what are these games even for? Right? Which is not a good mindset. These games mean something, right? You talk about Cleveland struggling right now, get the 1 seed home court, make your life easier. We talk about making your life easier. Right now, you're potentially going to have to go into Cleveland if it's a game 7 on the road, right? It's hypotheticals here. I don't think this team is thinking, yeah, we have been. Maybe we do want to go on the road. Give us the 5 seed. We'll take it. But I don't think I do think you guys are off there on the sense of I don't think it matters with these guys. I don't what happens these next 2 weeks, I don't think it matters. Maybe I'm crazy, but I really do think you could see this team rip off 5-6 straight into the All-Star break, right? But if they don't come out of the All-Star break ready to go for the playoffs, it doesn't mean anything. So I think these next 2 weeks are like a mind you, I say non-factor but I do want to see them get some wins here going, right? I'm not saying I don't want to see that. What I'm saying is that what really matters in my mind is how do they look post All-Star break? Because that is okay. We're playing for the playoffs. Okay, we're getting ready for the playoffs.
I would tend to agree with that. It's the post All-Star break is definitely important, but even leading up into All-Star break, I want to see a mild takeoff. I don't want to see, I really don't expect, I'm on the same train with you where I don't expect this team to go full force ahead into All-Star break because I think that would be kind of a fallacy to do because ultimately you're going into All-Star break and you go into All-Star break, maybe that momentum slows down a little bit for the Boston Celtics if you really go full force ahead. But I do want to see going into All-Star break, not what we just saw in January. Well, that's really all I'm asking for before All-Star break is can we not go back and forth? Can we go 3 straight wins? Okay, maybe you lose a game. Maybe you drop a bad game here. Oh, can we get 2 straight wins after that? Can we go 5-1 and 6? Because we haven't even been able to do that lately with this team. Is they've really just been unable to pull out consistent games. We haven't seen a 3-game winning streak since the 31st of December, January 2nd, and January 3rd. And then before that, it was at the beginning of December. And then after that, in terms of winning back-to-back games, after that 3-game winning streak, the Celtics won back-to-back games only at the end of the month of what we just saw against the Warriors and the Clippers. Every other game has been back and forth. I going into All-Star break, to me, if that trend continues, I'm looking at All-Star break with a side eye. And if we can do that after All-Star break in terms of hitting the throttle and going full force, because that would be 2-3 months of data up to that point that suggests, the Celtics really have not done that at all. What makes me believe they're going to do that going 20, 30 games downhill into the end of the season? So that's what, for me, even before All-Star break, there is an important stretch here. They don't have to be full force ahead. They just cannot be as mediocre and as back and forth as they've been lately. And I still believe in this team that they should be able to do that. They should, because coming off a loss, they're extra motivated every single time. They're 14-1 off of losses. Just come into wins extra motivated. It is a night and day experience from when the Celtics come off a loss versus coming off a win. They come off a win, and it almost feels like Thank goodness we did that last night. We did our job. It looks like we get to kick back and sit our feet up on the couch, and that's it. And after loss, it's like, oh, we get up off the couch. It's like that meme where the guy, like leans forward playing a video game, like, oh, wait, what? We just lost right now. It's like, I want to see that after wins. I want to see that consistently after every single win where we win and go, you know what? That felt good. Let's go do it again. Not, oh, finally. It's out of the way, guys. Oh, we won a game. Because the next game, it always looks like that. The effort, the energy, the intensity. It's really, we hone in a lot on those three aspects of the Boston Celtics, but it really does just lead back to this team's want, this team's intent in any basketball game. When they want to go out there and defend at an elite level, they can do that. When they're hitting on all of the details, they can do that. And when they don't want to do that, they don't do it. And those are the games you see against the Houston Rockets. Those are the games you see against the Los Angeles Lakers, the Toronto Raptors, going back all the way, the second half of Oklahoma City. Those are the moments in which the Celtics just take their foot off the gas and go, well, we've done our job already here, and that's going to be it for us. But if the Celtics want to do their job, they are the team to go back to back, and the first team to go back to back potentially since the Golden State Warriors in 2017 and 2018. It is not easy to go back to back whatsoever. That motivation needs to be found, and when the Celtics find that motivation, they're certainly able to do their job. We just need to see it consistently. That's what we need to see. We need to see them find that motivation after the wins and not become complacent. We asked that question a month ago. Are the Celtics becoming too complacent? The answer was definitively, and maybe not at the time, but now for the last month, it is definitively yes. Yes. And we need to get rid of that, or not rather we, I mean the Boston Celtics need to get rid of that in order to actually go and be serious about winning back-to-back titles. That's just what it is right now.
I think the Celtics, in terms of, and I'm with you guys, like, all right, we've seen the last 6 to 8 weeks of really struggling, inconsistent basketball. Yes, we have had some really dominant wins in the mix and some really good wins, solid wins, but it's been defeated with some pretty brutal losses as well this past 6 to 8 weeks. I will say this, whether we go on a huge winning streak or not before the All-Star break, I do think the Celtics have and I'm not just saying this because we beat the Bulls. I'm just saying this based just looking at the schedule. Celtics have a really, really good opportunity here before the All-Star break, whether they go on a big win streak or not, to really go get some good feel-good wins, right? Like you beat the Bulls, right? It's cool. You could beat the Pelicans. That's cool, right? The Clippers without Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. That's all cool. Those are okay wins. Those are expectation wins, as Franco said earlier. But if you can go out while you're struggling in the midst of a really hard point in the season, you can go out and get wins against Cleveland, in New York, in your finals rematch against the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not saying all problems are solved, but I am saying those are the building blocks. Those are the steps in the right directions. Those are the feel good wins. Right. These are, yes, you did. You went in, you felt good. You played a good full 48-minute basketball game tonight, something we really haven't seen much of for the Celtics. When we looked at the lead tracker, that was probably as close to a wire win we've seen as of late in these last 6 to 8 weeks. So definitely a good win tonight, but the Celtics have a really good shot coming up here in the next couple of weeks to grab some really, really good wins against some really worthy opponents. Also, Seamus, you mentioned it, 6-4 in the last 10 games. We're also 6-4 in the last 10 games as a Cleveland Cavaliers. Celtics had a really, really solid opportunity to go out and get some traction, but some brutal losses this month against the Houston Rockets, against the Los Angeles Lakers. You mentioned that Toronto game as well, which was putrid, really pushed the Celtics back in the standings. And who's creeping up behind them? It's the New York Knicks, who have been hot as of late. And that's a team you see in your schedule late next week, I believe Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be another huge win going into the All-Star break. So, again, let's talk after Friday, because for Christ's sakes, the Celtics at this pace, yes, they're one of the best road teams in the league, but at the same time, they've really had a hard time building off of wins here. But Celtics still in a really solid spot. They could be, I do feel, and I know maybe I'm being too optimistic about this team, but they still have a really, really good shot, and they're still in a really solid spot considering how poorly they've played. So again, couple games coming up here for the Celtics that could be really good wins for them, but you're going to need to see this more and more often and more consistent because, a 2-3 game stretch can't make up for the past month and a half. It could definitely make you feel better about the last month and a half because you finally strung together some solid, consistent performances. But at the same time, this whole win-loss thing, that's not going to matter. It's like when you claw yourself back into the game and then it gets late in the game. You're like, oh, finally, we're in this ball game. And then I score, then Seamus scores, then I score, then Seamus scores. Well, if I'm trying to come back, that's really not going to do me any good. So the Celtics really need to build off of these types of wins.
Let me add this to your point too about some of the feel-good opportunities coming up. Some of these games are against teams you could actually see in the NBA playoffs if you're the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
And even in January, you look at some of the rogue losses and wins. A lot of these teams you're likely not going to see in the NBA playoffs. You're not going to see the Raptors in the playoffs. You're not going to see the Kings in the playoffs. You're not going to see any of the Western Conference teams we just faced out west in the playoffs potentially, unless the finals comes around and ultimately you see the Mavericks potentially later on in time if they can turn the corner themselves. But the two teams that you could see early on in the playoffs from this last stretch in January, or really the three teams, would be the Magic, it would be the Bulls, and it would be the Hawks. Well, you blew out the Bulls, you blew out the Magic if you're the Boston Celtics. The Hawks game, the Celtics had that in the bag down the stretch if Drew Holiday doesn't. I mean, I don't know what was going on with his brain at the end of that game. And if you could get a stop in overtime as well, those are all three quality wins. If you could pull that Hawks game out, if you're the Boston Celtics, they don't, of course, they lose. They're 2-1 in those matchups. But now going ahead, if you're facing the Knicks, if you're facing the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you're the Boston Celtics, those are games this Celtics team should get up for. They should be able to get up for because these are games the Celtics later on in time, there's going to be data mined in these games that are going to be used potentially later on in a playoff series against these teams. And that is going to be a good, I would say, a poll for what the Celtics are going to do later on this season and where they could go in the playoffs, because specifically that Knicks and that Cavs game, right? If the Celtics don't wake up for those games, say they lose both games the way they lost the Lakers game, I'm sorry, there has to be real concerns with this ball club.
Absolutely.
Because if
you're
not waking up for the real opponents you're going to face in the Eastern Conference, that's when the real questions of motivation start coming about. Because I know we're all sitting here on this broadcast going, well, there are the Cavs above us, and there's the Knicks right behind us. We're looking at those standings. I'm sure the Celtics don't look at the standings as much as we do ultimately on a day-to-day basis, but they're aware of those teams. They understand their competition around the league. They are 100% aware, and they know some of the teams they're going to have to potentially beat in the playoffs. Not like they don't watch film ever, and they 100% do. And a lot of these guys, let's face it too, they're basketball fans. They probably understand, oh yeah, the Knicks, they're right up on our tail. Oh, the Cavs, oh, we didn't quite gain ground on them. Now, it's not letting them affect their play on a day-to-day basis, but at the same time, those are teams in which you come out with and really provide a different energy. Even that Oklahoma City game. Now, Oklahoma City, we're not saying that, hey, like we're going to ultimately, we could see them in the NBA Finals. Most likely, I don't know. Those are the two technical favorites right now in terms of winning the conferences. So I won't say technically it's unlikely for them to play whatever. But at the same time, you could see that matchup in the playoffs. And that matchup was insanely hyped by the national media, every local media station out there with Boston, Oklahoma City. And the Celtics, they came out with a much different energy in that game. The problem was it didn't persist throughout the game, particularly the second half. But you saw the Celtics that entire game. It was a different energy from both teams, whether it was Oklahoma City in the second half or Boston in the first half. There was a different energy. And so this Cleveland game, this Knicks game, there has to be a different energy from the Boston Celtics. And if there's not, that is really when I'm looking at it and going, all right, something is extremely, extremely wrong. We've seen this past month, something has been wrong with the Boston Celtics, but none of us at the same time, none of us are really hitting the panic button. We've hit the concern button. We've hit the confused button, but we have not hit the panic button. If the Celtics come out in those two games and look lackluster, that is when we're looking at the panic button going, okay, it's looking a little like, Rob, you have your meter. It's getting the needle's getting a little to this side right now.
Well, I want to make yet another. I told you guys I was going to continue my research and to the world of defending the throne, the championship, going back to back. Well, I have an update for you guys on my research. And this research dives into more modern, recent NBA play. The 2017-2018 Golden State Warriors, Seamus, it was perfect. You just brought them up. Now, this one was the most interesting deep dive I took because this Warriors team was coming off of the 2017 team, was coming off of a 73 win season, right? That following year, guys, they were dominant, right? That first year with Kevin Durant, they were the 1 seed. They won 67 games. They were absolutely dominant at home, 36-5 at home. I mean, really went into the playoffs steaming hot. A lot like what we saw last year with the Celtics. Dominant at home, went into the playoffs rolling, 64 to between 65 to 67 wins in that realm, guys. That following year, you might ask, okay, what did it look like for that Golden State Warriors team? It's the second year. They are playing with each other. They know each other better. They know the scheme, all that. They must have been better, right? Well, you are right. They were better in the postseason. However, if you take a deep dive into the regular season, guys, that 2018 Golden State Warriors team, they won only 58 games. They were 58-24. They finished the last 10 games of the season, guys, with a losing record. They were 4-6 entering the playoffs with their butts in the face of guess who? The 65 win Houston Rocket team. The Houston Rocket team, who everyone said was built to beat the Warriors, that was going to beat the Warriors. Guys, it is eerily similar to what we are seeing right now with the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So again, right now, my theory, the only team I'm kind of seeing that's debunking my theory right now are those damn 90s Bulls, because they really did just keep getting better. But again, different circumstances. The 90s, you're talking Michael Jordan, whole different. But in Rob's day 2, or day really what now is running on day 4 of diving into these teams, guys, look into the Warriors. This Celtics team and that Warriors team the following season are eerily similar. You know what's also eerily similar, guys? Their X Factor. Tonight, our X Factor, he was dominant, guys. Before we talk about Kristaps Porzingis tonight, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of the post-game show, SeatGeek. Guys, SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there on the market. They have you covered for all live events in your area. Guys, at checkout, use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase. You can find that link in the top of the description, guys. So again, a huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring us this season. Guys, let's talk about the X Factor, many call him, Kristaps Porzingis. Seamus, you refer to him as this team's Kevin Durant. Guys, tonight, Kristaps has looked as fresh as he ever has wearing green. 34 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, a double-double for the big man tonight, guys. A career high, tying a career high with 8 made three-pointers, 26 of those 34 points, obviously, guys, coming in that first half. Kristaps, guys, we know what he can do, but it doesn't feel like we've seen him at 100% yet. Abby Chin is checking up on him, right? Asking him, Kristaps, where do you feel? How do you feel? And something he said recently, guys, that he's feeling fresh. Tonight he said he's 97.6%. He's inching closer to that 100%. Obviously, this is a guy that missed the first month and a half, right, of the season due to that injury he suffered in the playoffs last year that eventually required surgery. Guys, it feels like Kristaps Porzingis might be inching back to becoming 100%. He has been on a heater recently.
Absolutely. He looks healthier. And I said this a couple games ago. I mean, it stinks the Celtics keep losing games because we're really wasting some really good Kristaps games. I know we haven't been too keen on the whole individual performances throughout this, 11-10 stretch here, these last 21 games. But at the same time, there's no denying that Kristaps Porzingis is looking more and more like his former self. We talked about the second half of the season last year, and even in that first round, Kristaps was spectacular. And here's the thing. need to see the health of Kristaps Porzingis continue because we know that we will consistently get this out of Kristaps Porzingis. We know that we can and we will, but the problem is poor guy can't stay healthy. But recently, past few weeks, he's been able to stay healthy, and when he has been able to stay healthy, he has been nothing short of spectacular for this team. He gets going early. I know we like Kristaps more in that mid-range, high post game rather than that three-point shot, but you really can't harp on him when the guy's knocking down. When you have a 7'3" guy who can knock down 8 3-pointers in a game, you're going to let those fly. Go for it. If you're hot, you're hot. But there's not too many players like Kristaps Porzingis in this league, and this league is constantly evolving of 7-foot players who can shoot the three ball. But Kristaps Porzingis, in my eyes, is definitely one of the best in the league at doing it consistently. So props to Kristaps Porzingis, man, and grabbing those 11 rebounds. Talk about Kristaps Porzingis. We need him to crash the boards, get those rebounds. He's not 7'3" for nothing. Great double tonight. 26 and
Franco's suction cup is on a Celtics run right now. Just
Franco, do you not see it go down? Do you not see it falling down? You don't?
No.
It's just right in front of you. Okay. Well, I love what I've seen from Kristaps Porzingis recently.
He gave us 20 minutes of a good run, I will say.
Seamus has a stopwatch
Oh,
on his waist.
He got a fall count.
Frank a fall count 2. Jenna's keeping track. I honestly thought it was 3, but 2 is you're it's all right.
This post game. Last post game it had to be what, 8?
Celtics weekly
post game before. Yeah, I mean we couldn't get it
like
up
10 right now.
But
Celtics
getting
weekly.
back on the topic of Kristaps Porzingis, he's really been good for this team, and I hope he can stay healthy. And Celtics have done a phenomenal job at managing Kristaps Porzingis in his injury. So hopefully that we can keep that up. And we're going to need him. I mentioned the schedule earlier on in this show, but we're going to need him against teams like Cleveland and Dallas and New York. And then obviously we have the Spurs coming up as well before the All-Star break. Wemby and Kristaps. If we can get this Kristaps Porzingis against Victor Wembanyama, I mean, that's the chef's kiss. 2 of the best centers in the association. And obviously Kristaps isn't on my All-Star reserve list. It's a shame that he was injured most of this first half of the season, because I'll tell you what, the past couple weeks he's been playing, at least he's passed 7 to 8 games. Definitely All-Star worthy, in my opinion, these last 7 games. But we're going to need to see this more from Kristaps Porzingis. As long as he can stay healthy, his health, we talk about X Factor, Rob, his health could just be very much so the X Factor of this team, and it's falling. We've seen this team win without Kristaps Porzingis last year in the playoffs, but I still think that Kristaps Porzingis is so obviously such a huge piece to going back to back. I don't know if you go back to back without Kristaps Porzingis. I really don't, especially with Al Horford another year. Franco, you're giving me vertigo, dude. What is going on?
It's like you can tell he's securing it right now.
He's prepping it now. He's putting it higher.
I think I heard the tape. So yeah, again, Kristaps, Seamus, I mentioned past 7, 8 games he's been playing at an all-star level. Love to see this from Kristaps, especially during wins.
Well, Justin, you have your flowers. I'm going to give my kisses to Kristaps Porzingis and others out there tonight. Kisses to Kristaps, of course, because ultimately,
we're not doing that. By the way, we're not doing that. We're not making that a thing. We're not doing that.
That's a shame.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we're not doing it.
No, we don't have to. We don't. No, I'm not. We're not making a graphic out of this. So I'm just saying.
That's so funny.
No, honestly,
your kisses.
Honestly, tonight, Kristaps, we came into this game 13 points in the first quarter, and I was going halfway through the first quarter, mind you, and I was going, if he does not exit tonight's game with at least 30 points, something is wrong with the Celtics coaching staff and Kristaps Porzingis hand in hand, because he does this every single game. He's starting to do it every single game. I mean, last post game, we didn't mention enough that he started the game 5 of 6 from the floor and ended 6 of 8. How are you 5 of 6 in the first 8 minutes of the game and you end 6 of 8? I mean, I don't want to say Kristaps disappeared, because I believe what happens is teams make adjustments and then the Celtics go, well, they made an adjustment. We're not going to make an adjustment of our own, and we're just going to go away from Kristaps, and looks like it's Jaylen Brown's night, or looks like it's Tatum's night. And sometimes we see that take over a game to the point of what we saw last game where, and it's Brown ISO one-on-one down the stretch when we have an efficient enough offense, the players on offense, the talent on offense to get a player like Kristaps Porzingis opportunities, whether it's down by the rim or on the 3-point arc like we saw tonight. 8 of 14 from 3. This man is 7'3". 7'3". If a 7'3" guy walks through the door, any of our doors right now, I couldn't imagine that man shooting as crisply as Kristaps Porzingis shoots the basketball from deep. And some of his moves, him as a pure baller out there, we saw it a little bit against the Lakers as well to start that game. Kristaps Porzingis, he is just such a skilled basketball player, and you can tell he is really getting his rhythm under his feet right now, literally and figuratively, because over the summer, he mentioned this after the game on Postgame with Abby Chin, that over the summer, if I have a good summer, I usually come into a season playing well. Well, this past summer, Kristaps Porzingis was rehabbing from an injury. Was it ankle injury, knee injury? Right? I don't remember what. It was ankle, right? Ankle. I'm folks. I'm not a doctor. Over the summer, I was saying, it's a knee, and then it was his ankle, or was I? See, this is where I just. Regardless, it was a leg injury.
It's a rare injury, so not too many people know.
No, because we do this thing. Let's mention this. As basketball fans, anytime we hear the technical term of it, we go, all right, let's become MDs right now. Let's all go look at 3D graphs of this tear, and let's see what the anatomy of the human body is right now, so we can figure out what happened to Kristaps Porzingis' legs. But essentially, over the summer, Kristaps Porzingis, he injures one of his legs in the NBA Finals, of course. Essentially tears something to the point in which he has to have surgery. And over the summer, he's rehabbing. And even the start of the season, the first 20 or so games of the season, Kristaps, he is still rehabbing, still ramping up to get to where he wants to go. And something we forget about a lot is the fact Kristaps Porzingis, we were thinking when we heard the timeline initially over the summer that he probably wasn't coming back until maybe Christmas, maybe mid-January. Well, right now, it's becoming the end of January. We could have got Kristaps Porzingis back 2 weeks ago. Instead, we saw him at the end of November, that November 25th game against the Los Angeles Clippers was his first game, and he still needed time in order to work himself back into basketball shape, back into play, back into rhythm. And really this month, he's taken off. And Justin, you already mentioned it. It sucks that we see some of these losses transpire for the Boston Celtics, because Kristaps Porzingis, he is playing so well with this basketball team right now. And really, there are a couple players who have played well, and some of the players that we're looking at not playing well, it's been guys like Derek White. It's been guys like Drew Holiday, guys like Al Horford, Sam Hauser. Some of these players we haven't seen play well as Jaylen Brown. Let's add him to that conversation. And they'll have good games, but it's all about putting it together. And really, Kristaps, he is a part of a group right now that we are not really worrying about. I would say we don't worry about Tatum. We don't really worry about Pritchard too much. He'll have his off nights, but Pritchard, if he's giving you that 20-point game, that's a huge boost off the bench. But everything he does in terms of bringing energy to the team, competitiveness on both ends of the floor, Peyton Pritchard, he's a much more improved player than what he was. Kristaps Porzingis is in that conversation right now. Players we don't really worry about whatsoever, because he's coming to the floor every single game and doing his job, and he's just getting better and better and better. And Eddie House mentioned it on postgame for NBC that Jaylen Brown used to be the tone setter of this team at the beginning of games. And I still believe that Brown and Tatum, they really lead the way in terms of setting the tone. But Kristaps Porzingis, if he is hot early on, that gives the team a huge boost. And as of late, they just have not really been using it the way that they should, because I would say most of the time, what we saw in December, the team was actually getting off to really slow starts and really sloppy starts. as of late, this is another point of optimism for the Boston Celtics that there may be a corner to be turned, or it's soon, right? The turning dot, right? Not the turning, won't say it. It could be soon for the Celtics team, or it could happen at some point in time. Number one, it's Kristaps and his play. But number two, it's the team has actually gotten off to good starts, and a lot has to do with the way Kristaps Porzingis comes out and starts a game. And we've seen it recently, even in losses. That's the most frustrating part. Even in losses, we see Kristaps play well early, give the team the spark. The spark the team ultimately needs in order to go out there, gain a lead, and then maintain it for the rest of the game. We've seen a lot of sloppiness out of the Celtics and being able to do that as of late. But the bottom line is that the Celtics want to be that team that goes back to back, and the first back to back team since the 17-18 Warriors. They have to come out strong out of the gates in games and not just play their way into games. They have to come out strong initially, maintain that lead, and really just do what they did tonight and beat teams by. I'm not expecting every single game to be a 20-point win, but you want to be sitting your starters down the stretch. That's where the Celtics want to be with how they win games. They don't want to be in close wins against the Los Angeles Clippers, against the Kawhi, the Norman Powell, the Zubac and James Harden list Los Angeles Clippers. They want to win games where they're sitting their players down the stretch, skimping those minutes, of course. And Kristaps, he's really been a huge part in the Celtics trying to do that as of late. I will say, trying. They've done it a little bit, but they're really trying to do it every game. And Kristaps, ultimately, from the entirety of his play, has been phenomenal as of late, and still a major, major reason why the Celtics could potentially go back to back this season. Kristaps Porzingis, he brings another level to this team, undeniably.
100%. Yeah, tonight he was just able to light up the score, especially in the first quarter. If you have a player playing like that, it's kind of hard not to follow within his footsteps. The team did so in another way. The way the 3-point shot was falling today was not something you can even expect out of him to have on a frequent basis. And I think that's something that this team really should be able to build upon of. And you saw how it really opened up the offense for the other players. You saw Derek White getting open looks, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown being able to cut to the lane. Because once you pulled Vucevic outside the paint, you really had a lot of free lanes and a lot of mismatches that the Celtics were really able to take advantage of going through. And he's going to be a major focal point moving forward. Like Justin said, if he wasn't injured heading into this season, I would, without a doubt, put him in the All-Star category for this year. Most likely, even competing with Karl Anthony Towns to be a starter for this year. But it's really comforting that he's starting to get his footing, and once he starts rolling, I think this team is inevitably going to pick up their consistency and be able to build off that. You'll be able to see them start to go into games having the advantages, and I hope that we can see him start to open up more to being more available. And he says he's at 97.5% right now, right, Seamus? Yeah. But I think if he's up, I think if he's once he gets that without an ounce of doubt in him or a little lingering, I think we'll be able to really take full advantage of what he can do for us.
I mean, the Celtics haven't gotten a healthy Kristaps in God, how long? Not
First
since.
night.
I mean, you got to think about it. It's almost been. It feels like 8-9 months that they've gone without Kristaps healthy. In terms of, yes, he's been on the floor, but there's a difference between being on the floor and being truly 100%. And I think you look at that factor, and you talk about this team's trajectory, and that helps. I mean, we know how good this guy is, and you two players that kind of you've looked at this year and it's been a little disappointing. Derek White and Kristaps. Now, obviously Kristaps the past 10 games has looked much, much fresher and much healthier. And really, I think this is the first time I've watched him all year. It's a shame he got into foul trouble against the Rockets, but he just looked 100%. I mean, his movement, every time you watch Kristaps and he falls to the ground, it feels like he gets up and there's a little bit of like, oh no, but he fell a couple times tonight and he got right back up. And there was kind of no, again, knock on wood, but there was no limp. There was no concern. There was no gasp. So that is big. And, I agree with what Seamus says. And we talk about, what Kristaps brings to the game, and Justin and Franco, you guys also alluded to this. I mean, it's so unique, and it is so special what he can do on the court and what he opens up for the other guys like Brown and Tatum and White. And tonight we kind of saw White get going there. And I think that was a correlation of Kristaps and what he was doing. So, I agree. I mean, I believe he's averaging 22 points, shooting 53% from 3, 54 from the floor in the past 8 games. Just absurd shooting numbers. You got to think we shout out to Ravens, Orioles, Celtics. He gave us a diagnosis on Kristaps. So I believe that's.
Try to read that.
Yeah, I know. A torn. I'm not even going to try, but
that's where MD. Start becoming an MD. You don't need 8 years of medical school, folks. Go on Google. That's what every NBA fan does. That's what we do.
You got to talk about from a jump shot standpoint. Anybody that's played basketball, when you don't have your legs right and you're not fresh, shooting the ball is very difficult. I mean, to get into a rhythm, and
won't get it past the free throw line.
Yeah. And it's good to see Kristaps back. I thought he was huge tonight, and he's going to continue to be huge for these guys. So, you look at this team, and Justin, obviously you're what you're handing out tonight's the other guy that I'm very excited to talk about, because those two players, and Kristaps tonight, he did that, guys. I mean, 8 of 14 from 3. He's 7-2. And he's knocking down 8 threes. I mean, you don't realize how nice we have it when he's firing. And tonight he was firing. They were falling, so I don't have a problem with those 14 3-point attempts. They were great looks, and I was very pleased with Kristaps' performance. No doubt
there, but you can't blame him.
Yeah, and you can't.
Our 3-point shooting big man used to be Aaron Baines and Al Horford. Just remember that, folks. Just remember that.
Daniel Tice.
Not Kristaps and Al Horford.
Tice.
Tice too. I guess you could say Tice.
Why don't we hand out my flowers? Right. We'll hand out my flowers. Not my kisses, my flowers. I don't know what that was. But
Tatum gets to hand out kisses, but I don't. Wow.
Dude, hand out my
Tatum
flowers, Rob. I don't have the ability to hand out my flowers tonight. All right, here we go.
There we go.
My flowers presented by Bucket Squad. Get the hottest basketball merch in the game. Go to Bucket Squad. Use code Celtics Talk Weekly at checkout for 10% off your purchase. Rob, you love Bucket Squad merch. We got to get some Bucket Squad merch distributed out here.
I know they're sending some to the house pretty soon.
But Derek White tonight gets my flowers. 22 points, 5 rebounds, a block. Very efficient from the floor, shooting 50 and 40 splits tonight. Guys, I want to give you a little fact right now. With Derek White, and I posted this the other day, I can update it now. The Boston Celtics are now 7-0 this month when Derek White shoots the ball over a 40% clip. They are now 7-0 this month when Derek White. So when Derek White is on, now we talk about Kristaps Porzingis being the X factor, might be the X factor, the true X factor might be Derek White shooting percent. But he was phenomenal tonight. This is Derek White coming off of a couple missed games in a row for the Celtics. So to see him also come in, get his legs under him, knock down some shots to really help exceed this lead tonight, it was really important. So my flowers, I think this is the first time I've given out my flowers. D. White is my man, other than Luke Cornett. On a more serious note, Derek White is my favorite Celtics player. And it's been a little while since we've seen a game like this from Derek White. So this was a really good Derek White game tonight, and came during a win, which is also really important.
you've made up for that Minnesota game where you missed it. But we won't get into that. But I do want to say this on Derek White. Just in general, this roster thins out immensely when Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis aren't playing at a high level. I understand it. Pritchard, 6 Man of the Year candidate, Sam Hauser, these are good. Luke Cornett, they're very great key contributors. But we talk about on a nightly basis, it gets really thin. And I think some of what you've seen recently with Boston is Derek White hasn't had it every night to, really get you going. Tonight, he looked really good. He looked in rhythm. He looked in sync. I mean, he had 4 or 10 from behind the arc, but 2 of them like rimmed right out from that left side corner. He looked fresh. He looked ready to go. So I was a big fan. I agree 100% on your Flowers. I'd love to hand out a bouquet with you.
Oh, gee,
because,
thanks.
because
ask me if I care if you agree with my Flowers.
See, this is what I'm saying. You can't compliment Justin.
And I do want to just mention, by the way, Sam Hauser has been on the downfall all year long. Comes out in Minnesota and hits every time, big shot down the stretch. Every time Minnesota got back into that game, it was Sam Hauser putting him out. This is the expectation for Derek White. We expect Derek White to be put in these types of games. So,
right.
Again, I think my Minnesota Flowers are just fine there, bucko.
Whoa, time out. Are you suggesting you gave him to Sam Hauser? You gave him to Kate.
Neemias. You're thinking
Did I give him to Nemi? I think I gave Nemi the Flowers.
No, it was that Minnesota game. He came in and scored 8 points.
You know what? You know what's crazy? Not to get too off topic. I don't know why you two are talking. I clearly wasn't on the post-game show. Whenever I'm not on the post-game show, I'll text you my Flowers. Still, I'll text you my Flowers, and you jackasses ignore it and give somebody totally different.
No, that's a good point because this is kind of a redemption moment because the last time we played the Bulls, I think you said Porzingis and we were like,
we gave it to Brown.
This is Brown. So yeah, we got it right tonight.
Not having it. More of the story. I love Derek White and what he showed tonight.
We got to beat the narrative. Brad Stevens always talked about beating the narratives. Our record for Flowers is so good, and I swear we only have like 2 losses. We have 2 losses. Losses go a long way. The losses go a long way. It was that Chicago game, Minnesota game. Straight up.
Wow. Since I handed out Flowers?
Since you've handed out Flowers, I think we have not two losses. Definitely not 2 losses. We have like 10 losses since you started.
So what the hell is your point?
I'm saying the rift with Flowers. We've only had 2 mistakes. We had the Jaylen Brown Porzingis mix up, and then in Minnesota you were like Kata, and I was like, how are these Flowers not going to White or Hauser tonight?
That's what that was. I got overrided there. That was
vetoed.
Ridiculous. But I also didn't mind because you could have given either one of those 2 was going to get the award that night. All right, whatever. Who are we playing next? The Pelicans. Let's see if I can guarantee some Flowers here. Xavier Tillman. I'm going to give Xavier Tillman. Look at Seamus' face. That's exactly what I wanted. You deserve that. You deserve to go through that.
So off the
You deserve that.
That is so out of bounds. Like Xavier Tillman has not played. I mean, this would be like giving, I don't even know, J.D. Davison and Watson Flowers. Like Xavier Tillman is on that.
That's a shot at Franco.
But they haven't played. That's the
got my
problem.
Flowers. JD got my Flowers. JD's an all-star. JD's going to all-star weekend.
In the G League.
Okay, not to get off too top.
Shut up, Coach Rob.
How does that exactly work? He's a rising star for the G League? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have G League. Okay. They pick like 5 or 6 people from the G League. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Franco. Talk to me about our boy D White tonight.
I think
Don't say something. Go ahead.
Don't let the camera fall.
Well, Derek White was cutting to the
rim. You flustered him.
I know. I can see the hair on his back sticking up.
Derek White is really getting to the rim tonight and very active on the defensive end. He was doing his job with Drew Holiday being able to have the stock exchange. I think they were getting a lot of great steals. I think that he is a really big benefactor when the Celtics are playing well. If he's scoring around 15, 20 points a game, that's exactly where his sweet spot is. And that means he's taking efficient shots and he's not chucking up a whole bunch of shots throughout the entire game. If we are being able to get his contributions not only in scoring but on the defensive end and in facilitating, he's going to bring us a long way, especially heading into playoffs when you have matchups against other guards and you see the aggression in Drew Holiday's game as he gets older.
Derek White, well, we have an X factor in Kristaps Porzingis. Can we bring in a Y factor with Derek White? Because ultimately, Derek White, but Kristaps, he's been playing well, but even amidst the whole playing well, the Celtics, they don't always win those games. I still believe Kristaps is the X factor from this team going from really good to potentially all-time great team. But Derek White is what really brings the wins around for this Boston Celtics club if everybody else is contributing to their normal standards. Because if Derek White, we saw him do it last season. When Derek White is putting up those near 30-point games and even over 20-point games, the Celtics, they rarely lost in those occasions. And Justin, you gave that stat earlier about how Derek White, when he shoots over a 40% clip, the Celtics are nearly unbeatable. And that's really what it feels like when he comes to play, is when he is on his A game on both ends of the floor. And that's what's a little odd about Derek White this season. He's not always been there on both ends of the floor this entire year, but when he is, the Celtics team is extremely hard to beat because Derek White, we forget about the conversation. I mentioned this on last post game, but I'm going to mention it yet again. He was a part of the backcourt last season that was considered to be potentially the greatest defensive backcourt in all of NBA history, with between him, Derek White, and Drew Holiday. That's what it was, and that's what it is potentially this season as well. We haven't seen the results play out the way we've expected, but we still know those two players' abilities. And Derek White, he still has the ability to not only affect the game on the defensive end of the floor greatly, but offensively as well. Coming into this Celtics team nearly 3 years ago, can you guys believe we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary of Derek White being traded to the Celtics from the San Antonio Spurs? When Derek White came in, he changed the complexity of the Boston Celtics simply because of his IQ and his brain power. Derek White, he was the most efficient Celtics player on that 21-22 squad coming into that squad mid-season. And going forward, he was efficient in 22-23. And last season, he went beyond, because that last year his confidence turned up to a new level and he started doing things in which we never expected Derek White to do, which was shoot at a high volume, score at a high volume, and not only do it from beyond the perimeter but do it at the rim as well, while he's also bringing that playmaking to the floor. And Derek White, when we see that out of him this season, that's when the Celtics are at such an elite level, because when you have Brown and Tatum going, you have Kristaps Porzingis doing something like he did tonight, 8 3-pointers, and then you have Drew Holiday, which Drew Holiday, again, he's kind of that in the background player on the Celtics offense. We talked about a lot last season where he's taken a huge, I almost said step back, but it's a huge sacrifice for him to be playing on the Celtics squad, because Drew Holiday this season, the word regression, I would say, is actually appropriate for Drew Holiday, and he has taken a little bit of a step back this season. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the conversation is not on that right now. It's more of the fact he is that player that takes the sacrifice upon himself and goes, I'm not going to be the ball handler every single possession. I'm going to do all the little movements on the offensive end of the floor, whether it's standing in the dunker spot, standing in the corner, cutting at the right times, screening at the right times, doing all the little things on offense that really makes the offense run efficiently. That's what Drew Holiday can do on the offensive end of the floor. But Derek White, he can do all of that, but he can do more with the ball in his hands. And that's what we're starting to see from him as of late. He's starting to make better decisions with the ball in his hands. I don't know what was going on there with Derek White for a while in December and at the beginning of January, where we really saw Derek White. There were a lot of mental lapses, specifically on the offensive end of the floor. We saw him defensively too, but offensively, Derek White, he was one of the main culprits of this Boston Celtics team jacking up shots. 100% it was Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, just jacking up shots. Kristaps Porzingis. And it was, I'm going to jack off the catch. I'm going to jack off the dribble. I'm going to jack right away, right now, in front of everybody. The Celtics just jacking all over the place. And ultimately, Derek White, come on, guys. Come on. You guys are children.
Seamus, shut up, dude. We're going to mute you. We're going to mute you. You don't shut up.
Let me just say this. I don't know how the first couple got them. It's like, okay, God, this is Seamus on a postgame show. And then you really went for it. But
you guys know what I'm talking about. 3-point shots. All those 3-point balls going up in the air. Balls everywhere. But ultimately, Derek White, when he has the ball in his hands, he has to make better decisions with the basketball in terms of making the extra pass. We saw in the breakdown against the Dallas Mavericks, he getting that pump fake up in the air, putting his defender off kilter, and then driving towards the rim, creating the options for himself. Somebody in the dunker spot, whether it's Luke Cornett, whether it can be Drew Holiday on some occasions. And then, of course, going and finishing, either throwing that lob, throwing that little dump down pass, or finishing with that floater, or even against the Orlando Magic, we go to that game. He was all over Paolo Banchero and going towards the rim and really finding those open lanes and finishing for wide open layups. And that's just what comes with Derek White in terms of his plays. We want to see that good decision making. We've seen it a lot in the past. This season, it kind of went away there for 2 months, but I think gradually right now, if we want to bring out a point of optimism from this last Celtic stretch, despite the back and forth, if we do look at individual performances, there's a lot of good to say about individuals on the Boston Celtics, which of course we want to play as a whole team and not just a team of individuals. But at the same time, Derek White, he is gradually coming along in terms of getting that decision making, specifically on the offensive end of the floor, back to where it was last season and even before that with the Boston Celtics, which was this highly efficient playmaker / scorer who could just contribute not only for himself, but for everybody else on the team. When Derek White is doing that for the Boston Celtics, they are truly an elite basketball team. And yes, we have our X factor in Kristaps Porzingis, but if we had a Y factor, it's Derek White.
Hold on. That X factor isn't a Celtics Talk Weekly X factor. Don't stamp that. That's not my X factor. Drew Holiday. Shout out my guy. You can be yours. Okay. It's not mine. Okay. I got like 5 X factors.
No, but this is the great part about the Celtics. There are so many that we had this conversation so often last season. It's like, who is the true X factor? And it could be anybody on any given night. And that's what can still make this team a dominant team on some occasions, and even what gives us a lot of hope that they can still go back to back, because all these players, they're still around. They are still around on the squad and can still, we see it I shouldn't say few and far between. It's been inconsistent more so this year, but we see it out of these players. We see, it can be a Kristaps night tonight, 34 points. It can be a Jason Tatum take over the game. Last time we played the Chicago Bulls, we throttled them in Chicago. Jason Tatum put up his best stat line of the season, a 43-point triple-double. We saw against the Dallas Mavericks, Derek White and Drew Holiday. They won the awards that night, Player Spotlight and Flowers. So it can be any other, that is really a great point on this Celtics team. It just can be anybody on any given night. And that's great that we can have that conversation about this team, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't know who the X factor is on the Washington Wizards right now, but I don't know if they have one. I don't know if they have one.
I don't think they have one. Yeah. Well, guys, the Celtics, they're going to be back in action this Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time against the New Orleans Pelicans, the 12-36 New Orleans Pelicans. Zion Williamson, he did play tonight. Will be interesting to see if he plays again on Friday. The Celtics obviously looking to get some momentum going here following a good win. 122-100 was your final score from the game tonight in Boston, guys. Until now, we will go live after the final buzzer. Come right back here. We'll have you covered, guys. Until next time, you know the deal. We can cue this music in a happy manner. It's not a sad manner tonight. We cue it all the time, but happy. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Of course.